This lovely day, can I welcome everyone to this virtual meeting, and can I give a special welcome to Christopher Moore, who's the Principal and Chief Exec of New College Lancashire, and to Marcus Ross, who's the Vice Principal. Both Christopher and Marcus will be speaking to item 5 on the agenda today. Before going on to the agenda, can I say once again, I'll be chairing this meeting with strict adherence to the standing orders, especially standing orders 46 and 50. If any member wants to make a contribution, can they indicate that in the chat bar, and I'll bring you in on a sequential basis. With your approval, I would like to vary the agenda today. Can we take item 5 after item 2, and that will then allow our colleagues from New College Lancashire to leave the meeting? And can we also take items 6 and 7 after item 11B, and that will allow Archie Aitken and Stephen Penman, who are currently aligned to CLNL in different capacities, to stay on the call as long as possible. If there's broad agreement to these changes, can we now move on to the agenda? Okay. Before moving there, can I ask Andrew Rose? Andrew, any apologies or substitutions have been notified to you?
Yes, Convener. Apology from Councillor Brannan McVeigh, who's been substituted today by Councillor McCulloch. Apology from Councillor Duffy, who's been substituted by Councillor Gooley. And apologies from Councillor Morgan and Councillor Wilson.
Okay. Any further apologies? Any further substitutions to Andrew? No. Can we then move on to item 1 in the agenda, declarations of interest? Are there any interests to be declared? I don't see anything coming up in the chat bar. Okay, can we move to item 2 on the agenda? And that's the minute of the Audit and Scrutiny panel, the 5th of December. A minute has been tabled. Any comments, questions, concerns in relation to the minute? Okay, it doesn't seem to be. Can we now move on to item 5 on the agenda? And you can see item 5 is developing pathways, packages and partnerships from school to employment in North Lancashire. It's pages 85 to 94, and I'd ask Derek to introduce this, and contributions then from Christopher and Marcus. Derek, please.
Thanks, Leader. We'll be brief in our initial remarks to leave as much time for questions as possible. Delighted to have Christopher Moore from New College Lanarkshire and Marcus Ross from the University of the West of Scotland with me today. Obviously, the paper proposes a three-way partnership between the organisations represented here, a strategic partnership which will align better our curriculum through school and post-school to our regional labour market requirements and current and future needs. It's an accelerated 4-year degree that begins with your first year and 6th year. It leads to a basket of qualifications for young people, including HNC and HND, industry mentorship, and obviously, hopefully, a final job opportunity emerging from that pathway. So it's a clear route to a job. As we've identified areas of focus in terms of sectors for business activity in this programme, and we've also, through the partners, established 3 specific programmes that we can begin with. 3 in a pilot phase to take place from August next session. They are things we couldn't currently offer in school, and they're very exciting. That's in section 2.6.3, and obviously section 2.8 says we will initially pilot this in the Coatbridge area, but as soon as we're in a position to, we would obviously look to expand beyond those 3 initial schools into other areas. And likewise, we want to expand the pathways into the other sector areas we've highlighted in future kind of developments. So what I'm now going to do is to pass to Christopher, who will outline his organisation's hopes for their partnership with us in this programme, and then over to Marcus, and it will come back to me for a few very quick summing up remarks.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You think after a year I'd remember to unmute myself? Even professors get things wrong. This is really an important moment for me because I've lived all my life in Lanarkshire and I've never had any opportunity to engage with the local authorities. So this is a real nice day for me. just by way of background, I joined the college 9 weeks before the pandemic begun. So you can imagine my sort of experience of what it's like to lead such a large organisation with 16,000 students and 1,200 staff has been an interesting one. But I've been a professor for 20 years, and throughout all my life, I've always stayed in North Lanarkshire, specifically in that great township of Bellshill. So from that point of view, education and education within a Lanarkshire context is so, it's just part of me. Split me in two and you'll see that. And coming to the college, there were two main outcomes that I wanted to assure myself of and the whole college community. The first one was the fact that we as New College Lanarkshire would serve as an educational engine for you, for the people of this region, to make sure that we do all that we should do and can do to transform lives. And our new tagline is about bringing education closer. And we use that in a really specific and mindful way, because from our point of view, we are determined in terms of what we want to achieve is to do all that we can to raise the educational attainment of this region to the extent that we're so committed to it that we want our region to be among the best qualified, if not the best qualified in Scotland by the time that we have finished our strategy rollout. So how does that therefore fit within our strategic plan and how we want to support you and all of our region? Well, we are fundamentally committed to widening participation into further in higher education. And one of the things that we know about as being one of the big barriers is that of confidence. That idea of, is it for me? Does it give me an opportunity to be here? I've not got a family background for it, etc., etc., all those barriers. And we want to remove those barriers by encouraging people to engage in learning within contexts that they understand and they know within their own school. And from that, build opportunity, build that knowledge, build that confidence to progress. And it's not just about participation for its own sake, it's having a clear focus upon the viable future programmes that will lead to areas of robust and future-proofed employment. And we want to do that by delivering clear paths to the highest level of attainment that we can possibly have. For some students, they may well choose to exit after first year with an HNC, but we want to make sure for all of those students who have the fire in their belly and the determination to go to honours level, well, if we can do that, all the better. Because in the end, what we want to do is to provide as many opportunities for as many people to fulfil their potential and to raise aspirations. So one of the reasons why we're especially keen to support this is because it allows students in this area to learn in the very best conditions. Those conditions relevant to studying locally, smaller class sizes, focusing upon practical and technical skills that will attract them, that will motivate them, and build their confidence so that by the time they get to university, they are fully and ready. But it's not just an education for its own sake. It's also about building networks, building people's social skills, giving them access to employment so that they can hit the job market fully running. This is a really innovative and different approach, because ultimately what we're saying is that level 6 students, 6th year students, will be university students as well. They'll be university students from day one. And I just think, can you imagine the pride, the engagement, the opportunity that that delivers to our communities in ways that I think are really quite groundbreaking. So I'm not going to say any more, and I'll pass over to Marcus, who is our strategic partner from UWS.
Thanks, Christopher, and thanks, colleagues, for giving your time this afternoon and allowing us to present. Equally thrilled to be here and have this opportunity to speak to you all directly, and special thanks to Derek actually for facilitating these discussions. This is one of the most innovative projects I've been involved in my time at University of the West of Scotland, and it speaks to our, we have a set of 6 truths which we adhere to. The first of those truths is we are here for our students, and the final truth is we dare to be different. This project encapsulates both of those things beautifully. This is all about the young people, as Christopher said. It's about realising potential and raising aspirations and understanding that, you know, the traditional set of school leaver qualifications or college leaver qualifications are not the only things we need to focus on when we're trying to work with young people so they can realise that potential. And I think that's what the partnership here, the three-way partnership, but in particular the partnership between the college and the university, bring in a very unique way to this project. So rather than go over what Christopher said, I think I stand here with the whole university behind me, absolutely thrilled and delighted to be having this opportunity, with a firm commitment to North Lanarkshire and the people of North Lanarkshire in this as well. And I see this as one of the steps in our ways to engaging more with the communities of North Lanarkshire, expanding out, as Derek inferred in the beginning. This is a pilot. I'm sure it will be successful, and I'm sure there's a lot more we can do in the future. So thanks for your time, and back to you, Derek.
So, Leader, we're simply asking for approval for the partnership arrangement to deliver the planned curricular progression route, and also for the creation of a steering group to govern the arrangement between the partners. And obviously this paper, if approved by committee today, will allow the partners to draw down sources of funding to resource this important set of pathways. Happy to take questions as you advise, Leader.
Thanks very much, Derek. Thank you, Christopher and Marcus. The first question comes from Agnes McGowan. Councillor McGowan, please.
Thank you very much, Jim. I just had to speak on this scheme because I think it is absolutely admirable and exciting and gives our young people real life chances while adding real value to the economy of North Lanarkshire. Quotes from the report really hearten me. I do have questions at the end, Leader, but just a few quotes. You know, the scheme makes links between success and attainment and future life chances. Amazing. Very motivating for young people. It will maximise employment opportunities, create effective packages of learning and support, and will ensure the alignment of the curriculum to employment opportunities the way it should be. Development of successful apprenticeships, strengthening the curriculum, the perfect springboard, dream, believe and achieve. Amazing. And it will lower stress, the transition from school to university to employment. Now, just three questions. The curriculum is going to be more industry-based, for example, construction. Will school facilities need to be changed for this in the first year? In my day at school, rooms had to be fitted with sinks for beauty and hairdressing. New facilities had to be built and changed for car mechanics. So will schools need new facilities? And 3,400 people, it says, will be required to fill job vacancies between 2023 and 2030. Will these jobs be ring-fenced in the first instance for students from North Lanarkshire? And I presume there will also be a place for mature students. And thirdly, are any other local authorities facilitating similar wonderful schemes? Thank you, Jim. Or I should say, Councillor Logue.
Not at all. You're fine, Agnes. Derek, you want to pick up on those three questions, please? And if you need to involve Christopher and Marcus, please do so.
I think I'll, if it's okay with my colleagues, I'll deal with these questions, and then I'll possibly bring them in on some of the later questions. The resource implications, we think, won't require huge modification of facilities. In fact, we think we'll be able to deal with this as part of the kind of planned redesigned activities for the council post-COVID, and also with the partners. However, there is a possibility, obviously, that this agreement will allow us to draw down, as I said before, some funds from external awarding bodies, which could help it. So I would say to you that the financial statement at the moment is written in the way that it's written deliberately, and obviously we would come back with future updates to council based on how the programme evolves. On the jobs being ring-fenced, I would say that that's not necessarily something we'll be able to control, because it will depend on what businesses choose to do in terms of recruitment. But what I would say is, through the pathway, we're going to provide soft recruitment for the businesses who support us. And indeed, that would be one of the strengths of this sale to industry partners. So in effect, one of the sales to business is that this is effectively soft recruitment. And as for other local authorities, well, we do think, Marcus and Christopher have both said that we think that this is groundbreaking. In 2017, members will remember, there was a learner journey review 15 to 24 conducted in Scotland. And it was crystal clear from that there needed to be radical change, and that change needed to bring partners together to create pathways and packages and partnerships. That's entirely in alignment with the plan for North Lanarkshire and the drive towards full employment as far as possible in North Lanarkshire. What we have here is probably quite a revolutionary programme in terms of Scottish local authorities, but one, and I can see Marcus nodding at that, but one which we think once we do it, others will probably seek to copy.
Christopher, Marcus, would you like to add anything to what Derek has said?
Perhaps one small point. It seems to me that if we get this up and running, it will make the region even more attractive for inward investment, because externals looking in will see that there's this really clear, coherent pipeline of talent within the region that's robust and stable. And I think those attributes really make for making the place even more attractive to those external investors who will be scanning horizons to see where the best places are to invest.
Thanks very much, Christopher. Marcus, do you want to add anything?
Thanks, Councillor, and thanks, Councillor McGowan as well. I would echo what Derek said. I think other local authorities have looked at elements of this, but have not taken such an holistic approach to it. And I think that's what's particularly exciting, the integration from school, senior phase, through college, through university. To me, and as far as I'm aware, it is unique.
Agnes, are you happy with the responses? Do you want a supplementary?
I'm delighted. Thank you very much, and well done for organising this scheme. Amazing.
Okay. Next question comes from the leader of the SNP, Councillor Linden. Jordan, please.
Thanks very much, Leader. 2 brief comments and then a question. Just to say welcome to Marcus and Christopher to committee, and through you, convener, I'd like to welcome Christopher back if he continues to say things like the great township of Bellshill. Most welcome comments from a Bellshill councillor. Councillor, welcome the innovative thinking. Derek touched on this, clearly tying into a plan for North Lanarkshire, but also I think a really practical demonstration of how we can build, bringing the theory of policy to reality in terms of practice with developing the young workforce. It's a very practical example of how we can deliver on that agenda. Derek, just wanting to understand a wee bit more about the recruitment element in terms of section 2.5.1 of the report. How specifically will we engage with learners to identify them and place them on these pathways to ensure that their learner journey is tailored not only to the outcomes we want to see, but to their own desired experiences as well? Thanks, Leader.
Okay, Derek.
Yeah, so I think my understanding of what I think we're going to try and do here is there's a group of young people who maybe will finish 5th year with a number of hires and will probably wish to take part in a higher education pathway. At the moment, their only option is to either resit some hires to get to that higher education pathway or to take on hires that are perhaps not the thing they most want to do. So for that key constituency, we have a number of young people in that category. We now have a very clear sell, and we're focusing on areas which we think are exciting, different to what we've offered traditionally, and able to be kind of sold to them in terms of a currently exciting opportunity and also a future career pathway. And this is obviously best done through the schools themselves along with the partners. But Councillor Linden, one of the things that's most attractive to me is when we're doing this sell in future, we'll be doing it jointly with the university practitioners, with businesses, and indeed with our colleagues as well. And it's that joint sell and that kind of almost that wraparound approach that'll hopefully make that a more attractive offer. And obviously, there is a whole bit about getting the uptake from that, but that's one of the things we'll judge ourselves by. But I think we know who our market is, we know what the sell is, and I think we're all really behind it, and I think that strengthens it, Leader. I think that's what I would say to that.
Christopher, Marcus, you want to add anything to what Derek has said?
Fine, thank you.
No, fine, thank you. Next question comes from the leader of the Conservative group, Councillor Megan Gallagher. Megan?
Thanks, Chair. As a former student and graduate of UWS, I am really excited about this. I might err on the side of caution actually and perhaps declare an interest, because I'll always cheer on the university that gave me the confidence to do what I'm doing today. So, well done everyone for coming together and making this, a reality. I also think it's amazing to see a pathway being created for young people, because I don't know about everyone else in the call, but when I left high school, I didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. And actually having that opportunity to go through the processes and have that guidance to do it, I think it'll help so many young people. So I'm so excited to see this on paper. Just in terms of a question, how do we make sure that children, especially young people from high SIMD areas, are included in this, because it's more likely the young people from higher SIMD areas won't go to university or won't go into a form of higher education. So how are we going to make sure that we're reaching out to young people in these areas? Because I would love to see more people having the opportunity to get on in life and to get a good job.
Derek, you want to respond to Megan, please?
Yeah, so there's two or three things, and maybe Christopher and Marcus will want to come on this very briefly as well. I accept that that's a challenge, but I think that North Lanarkshire, and if statistics would bear this up, Councillor Gallagher, historically have had a really good track record of encouraging young people from SIM groups 1 to 2, for example, into that higher education pathway, and are more similar to the remainder of the population than perhaps other areas of Scotland. And obviously by initially locating it in an area which has got similar levels of deprivation, we're really hoping to crack that in the first instance. But partly the thing that is a challenge for young people coming from areas of deprivation, as I think we all understand on this call, is actually understanding that pathway and making it feel doable for them. And actually taking some of the kind of the uncertainty and the doubt away from it. So my colleague Christopher is pretty eloquent on this subject, and I probably, if it's okay, Leader, may let Christopher come in on this.
Certainly. Christopher, please.
Thank you, Derek. I think the key word is empathy. And as a college, and I'm sure as you experience, Megan, at UWS, the empathy that you experience from people, that sense of understanding where you're coming from and what the challenges will be, and really having a very clear-minded, robust wraparound service to help you get there. I think one of the key elements of this is there's a face to it. There are human beings who are from the area, who live in the area, who understand where you're coming from. I think that's a massive advantage in terms of this sense of we get you, we understand what your challenges are. And so much of it now is about building around the individual to help them get to what they need, where they need to get to in a clear and methodical way. So key element in all of it, I think, is human empathy and having a face that cares, and will be with you throughout that whole journey.
Marcus, you want to come in?
Well, if you don't mind, Peter. So thanks, Councillor Gallagher, and great to be speaking to a UWS graduate. I should get that off my chest first of all. It's brilliant. But I think, for the benefit of the wider group, this is what UWS does. We are the most preeminent university in Scotland in terms of attracting people from backgrounds that might not have traditionally gone to university. So SIMD 20 make up about 30% of our population. When you take that up to SIMD 40, that's about 50% of our population. As Christopher said, this is about recognising the individual and supporting the individual. And it's not about the ivory towered university from our perspective by any way, shape or form. We're a human organisation. We're aware of the different challenges and different support requirements. Now, that might be around some of the socioeconomic issues people face. It might be through to care experienced students or students who are carers. And now we put a tremendous effort into supporting people, and not just supporting them once they're in, but letting them know at the start of the journey that they, if possible, shouldn't let these things get in their way, because this is all about their potential and supporting them to successfully complete. Again, there's no benefit in front loading this at the sharp end of things and getting people in if they don't complete. So there's huge effort will go in through the college and the university to make sure the journey is a success as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marcus. Next question comes from Convener of Education, Councillor Frank McNally. Frank, please.
Thanks very much, Leader. It's not a question so much as it is a comment, and I don't know. After Jordan and Megan's contributions, I'm not sure if I should declare an interest about being from Belsill, but I want to really just place on record. I think the thanks of everyone for the report that's been presented. It is one of the strongest reports that we've read in this committee for a while. I'm really impressed by it, and really impressed by the plans that have been outlined. I think they're bold and ambitious, and the opportunities for our young people are going to be extraordinary out of this partnership. And I think if there's one thing that the pandemic has shown us, it's the importance of that partnership working, and that's really on display through throughout this paper. We've spoken a lot over the last few years about the challenges of breaking down silos, and again, this is the silos been certainly coming down. And I think for me, and I'm sure for other members, you know, if we can make this as strong as possible moving forward. I know we're only at the pilot stage, but you know, I'm sure all members on this committee have an ambition to see this grow and expand. Because you know the comments that you make, Christopher, I think are pertinent around attracting inward investment as well moving forward, but ultimately supporting our young people in their learner journey. So really want to place on record my thanks to UWS, to New College Lanarkshire, and to our officers for getting us to this stage. I thought the response there to Megan's question was a really useful answer, because it was a very pertinent question. So really just thanks to everyone for getting us to this stage, and I'm grateful for you giving me the opportunity to say that, Leader.
Thanks very much, Frank. Next contribution comes from Convener of Finance, Councillor Burrows. Bob, please.
Thanks, Leader. I think I want to it's a comment and then a very brief question, if you don't mind, Leader. And again, just to say a thank you for Derek, Christopher and Marcus. Very positive paper. I think it's exciting. It really is. It's also a great future for our students and our pupils. I think I've got one question, Leader, and it's in section 2.2.1, Derek, if you want to look at it. Now, the reason I'm asking the question is that within it, you talked about a key development, Derek, and then you also say about the college as a key partner, and it's about the planned revision of the week. Can you say a few words about that, if you don't mind, Derek? Thanks.
Derek, please.
Planned revision of the school week makes this partnership much clearer and makes the offering much easier to facilitate. The planned revision of the school week is going to enable me to put in place a number of strategic partnerships which will be of benefit to a huge number of young people. It's, if anything, going to accelerate what we are capable of doing. So it's become a hugely important strategic driver for change. And this is an exemplification of the type of thing we'll be able to do through having made that previous council decision, which obviously all members supported. So I would say, Councillor Burrows, the school week enables partnerships such as this to work at full tilt with maximum potential, to energise the young people in North Lanarkshire and all the staff working with them to make the biggest difference. And I think that's what we want to get everybody in behind. So it'll help the sale of that.
Thanks very much, Derek. Any comment, Christopher, Marcus?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Okay, thanks. And the final question comes from Councillor Claire Bartley. Claire, please.
Thanks, Leader. I'm really excited about this report, and I just, again, to put on record my thanks to Derek, to Christopher and to Marcus for bringing this to us. We're at the early stages of it, but already you can see the potential. I'm really pleased to see at 2.2.3 about looking at the ASN schools, and that basically that is mentioned about the vocational offering for ASN, and there'll be more will come through. There's questions you've got, but because I have questions I have, but it's more of how it's going to go forward, and that will come with the other reports. Ended up that Christopher laid it on for me, and it's what has come through in a lot of the comments. When, for me, I was one of the first girls in my family to be going to university, and it was really daunting. It was a big deal for somebody from my background, from my area, to be contemplating going to university. And unfortunately, I didn't go to UWS, so I can't bring that in. But it's to have a transition and to show young people that this is feasible, that you can do this, is absolutely wonderful. And it's to look into the future to make sure that, as Megan said, about making sure that kids from areas of higher deprivation, but also for more girls to be going into certain industry, for more minorities, looking at that whole thing and coming through the school system, I think is great. And so I don't have a question. It's mostly as a comment, but I'm really this is there's a lot of things that come through, but I would honestly say that in the time I've been elected, this is one of the most exciting reports that's came through, and really thank you, all of you, for this.
Derek, are you able to handle all these plaudits today? Would you like to comment?
Yeah, well, so it's great to have it, but I think we all know, and I think everybody in the call, Marcus, Christopher, myself, and I think I'm speaking for everybody, the proof of the pudding will be how many kids we get through these pathways, how effectively the work is that we build, and but you set the policy direction today. If you approve it, you enable us to go forward and implement. We will obviously keep you abreast of the issues we have as we go along, and obviously we would measure ourselves by that, the impacts and the types of areas you've described, Councillor Barclay, which would be important to everybody on the call, I'm sure. And in terms of like the brains trust round about it, the knowledge transfer that will come from the different practitioners and different kind of managers and the different organisations working together, that's also a very powerful driver for the success of this, if you approve it today.
Thanks so much. Christopher, Marcus, any comment to add to the Derek's?
No.
I just say, Councillor Barclay, there's always time. There's always a place at UWS. You're not too late.
According to the chat bar, that was the penultimate contribution, the last contribution from Jim Hume. Jim.
Thanks, Chair. A comment and a question. And I concur with everything that's been said by other members. I consider this to be one of the most important initiatives I have ever heard of. Frankly, the benefits of this programme across the whole spectrum of young people's lives and futures are mind-blowing to me. And that this isn't negative, it's just trying to get some reassurance that it will be as effective as it can be. It does rely on all the partners being fully engaged with the process and indeed all committing the resources that are needed to make it the success it should be. Derek's comment resonated with me about the proof of the pudding. All my life I've been delivery oriented, and I wouldn't want anything to stop this programme delivering all the benefits that it should deliver. So I wonder if someone could give me a flavour about commitment and resources and the partners.
I think that's a dual question, so we'll ask Derek first and then Marcus and Christopher. Derek.
Yeah, so overall what the partners have agreed is they'll work jointly around about the different issues around funding, and there is a financial statement in there, Councillor Hume, which has been obviously approved by our finance team as well. We have had a look at how that partnership will work, but what I said earlier, and Christopher and Marcus can support this, that this paper, if approved, will support our partners to draw down funding from Scottish Funding Council, for example, to enable these programmes. And I think that's the attraction. So jointly we become stronger in attracting some of the external funding for this programme. That was one of the things that was supported in the Scottish Government Review, the Learner Journey Review 15 to 24 of 2017, where it quite clearly said that there was an imperative on national organisations such as Scottish Funding Council and Skills Development Scotland, and indeed local organisations such as ourselves with colleges and universities, to work together to secure those pathways, and that the agencies would come together to support. So a lot of the kind of funding sources are actually in play already, and will be able to be actioned off the back of the report being agreed. But it might be better if Christopher and Marcus just give a reassurance from their organisations.
Christopher, please.
Yeah, absolutely. From our point of view, as Chief Executive, it's my responsibility to ensure the effective deployment of resources. And to my mind, deploying our resources into pathways such as this really satisfy those criteria, because the students know exactly what they're going into. They've been well prepared, they're well nurtured, they're well supported because of that school transition, etc. So all of the indicators, I believe, will be of success. They'll be far less likely, I believe, because of the support they'll have from the transition from school into college. They'll be far less likely to drop out, to perhaps fail, to perhaps have a loss of confidence, etc. So in terms of resource utilisation, this to me is a really smart way of doing it, because it's focused, it's very clear-minded, And I think perhaps most importantly, it's got that human element because of all of those characteristics that we've talked around today to enable it to happen. People will know us. They'll know the college through the work that we'll do in school, and they'll know what the university is like way before they set foot in the building. And that, to me, are all characteristics of likely success. So I'll be really keen to put resource into things that deliver for me. And I'm quite convinced that this will be one that will deliver for me, that there's not really a kind of doubt in my mind.
Marcus, you want to add to anything that Christopher has said, please?
I would, and I think Councillor Hume's right. You know, the commitment of the partners, all three, are critical to this, and that, to my mind, goes beyond the finances. I think Derek's right that there are funding streams we can access to support this project for sure. But to reassure everyone, I would not personally be sitting here, and my organisation would not permit me to be sitting here in a professional capacity without that absolute organisational commitment to this initiative and to making it work. And it is about deliverables. You know, as an organisation, we're not interested in getting a kite mark for getting involved in something and then moving on. We want to make a difference to the young people that this project presents the opportunities for, and the resources will flow to make it happen. We can give that commitment.
Thanks very much, Marcus. Can I invite our own Chief Exec, Des Murray, to comment on the contribution from the Council, or the commitment from the Council? Des.
Thank you, Convener. No, I mean, I would just echo all the comments that have been made. This is a complex piece of work. The reason it's coming forward successfully is because of the shared desire to make it work across all those partners. It links back to the plan for North Lanarkshire that we'll talk about later on. It links back to the programme of work. This is just another really important element of the work streams underway across North Lanarkshire that brings everything together cohesively. We can't have inward investment, as Christopher mentioned, without curriculum alignment, without success in our young people and children and the careers and futures that lie ahead for them and the hopes and dreams that we have for them. So no, I mean, a huge appreciation for the work that's been committed today across the partners. The Council's support for this is unwavering and indeed will continue in the challenges ahead as we make it a success for all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Des. No further comments. Colleagues, can I direct you to page 85? There are 3 recommendations on page 85. Do you agree with the recommendations? Is there any amendment? Total agreement with the recommendations. Derek, thank you very much for your contribution. Christopher and Marcus, thank you very much for coming along today. I think you've given very insightful, personalised and reflective comments. I'm absolutely delighted that New College Lanarkshire share the same aspirations and ambitions as North Lanarkshire Council. And certainly, like my colleagues on this call, we all look forward to reports being tabled at future meetings on the progress of the rollout. And can I just say, Marcus, thank you very much. Like that phrase, dare to be different. And I'm sure my colleagues will hear me saying that repeatedly at future meetings on call. And I'll even claim originality for it. Thank you very much, Christopher and Marcus, for coming. Thank you.
Thank you both. Goodbye.
Colleagues, with your approval, we'll go back to item 3 on the agenda. And item 3 on the agenda, as you see from pages 11 to 22, is the Strategic Capital Investment Programme 21-22. And I invite Robert Steenson to make a contribution. Robert.
Thanks, Leader. I'll just very quickly cover the key points, and members will know it's a 5-year programme, but I would ask you just to bear in mind it's a 5-year capital plan within a programme which is outlined in the plan for North Lanarkshire going through to 2035. So this is really the first stage of us demonstrating how we're going to invest in the Community Investment Fund. So the report outlines how the funding is allocated, how we gain the funding to actually make sure that we can take forward this capital programme. Sets out how we've prioritised over £800 million worth of bids into a £520 million programme. You'll see that it's broken down by service area in paragraph 2.15, showing how we break down the programme across the service area. You'll see it's a £521 million programme, which is 144% greater than the last 5-year programme, which really demonstrates the impact that the Community Investment Fund can bring to our General Fund Capital Programme. And in the appendix, we've got a more detailed breakdown of each element of the programme under each of the service areas. I'm happy to take any questions in any of the issues to do with the programme, and I'm sure Elaine will be happy to address any of the points round about funding or the financing of it, Leader. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Robert. First question comes from Councillor Linden, please. John.
Thanks, Leader. Two things on this. First of all, just to welcome the paper. It's comprehensive, it's exciting, and ultimately it's transformational. And I think that's demonstrated by the underpinning in terms of all parties and none being supportive of the ambition and direction of travel over the next 5 years. I think that is fair to say. Robert, as you'd appreciate, one of the biggest elements of this agenda item is our investment in towns, schools and our communities through our hub programme. And I recognise that only one section of the report references this, but obviously I'm here to be a voice for local people and indeed members of my group who aren't here. And one of the issues that is coming to the fore in terms of section 2.1.9 of the report is around how we're involving local people in that process of the community hubs, in particular the concern around a lack of clarity on locations that we're talking about investing in. For example, Wishaw has 2 potential sites. Members there are worried that we're making people pick and choose. How is that going to happen? And another example is Wishaw, Bellshill and various other locations where there's existing pool infrastructure and inability to provide reassurance and answers as to whether future community hubs and future investment will see that return. Now, I recognise the significant complexities and the significant cost associated with pools. I have no doubt about that. But nonetheless, when people are asking us as elected members these questions as part of our strategic capital investment programme and our investment in towns and communities, obviously it's difficult for us to then answer. So I just would like to raise that, Leader, not dampening the thrust of the report, but to put it out there because that type of issue does set hairs running, and ultimately we want local people to have agency with what we're all collectively hoping for our communities.
Thanks very much, Robert, for your very balanced comments. Robert, would you like to respond to them, please?
Yes. First of all, I'd refer back to this committee a year ago, in fact almost a year ago to the day. It was 19th of March last year when we presented the detailed plan for North Lanarkshire. We had the presentations for each of the main strands of the plan, and what was agreed at that point was actually a matrix for prioritising and deciding on how we actually take forward that very programme that you've referred to there, Councillor Linden. And it outlines the matrix, I suppose, in its broadest categories, breaking it down in terms of deprivation, condition of facilities in the locality area, looking at the need across each of the localities, and then I suppose critically also looking at deliverability, i.e. where each of these campuses will fit in the programme will very much depend on number one, land availability, and number two, does the council have control over the land that's available, which is why in Wishaw we've got 2 sites that we've actually got full control of, and in other towns we actually don't have sites that we've got control of at all. So we're taking that forward. You'll be aware that we've had discussions with local members round about the campus programme. We'll take that to the town boards. And what we'll do is continue to have that high level visibility, Councillor Linden, because I think more than anyone, that the team who are taking forward this particular programme realise how critical it is for each of the localities, and therefore how much local interest there will be. In terms of the pool element of it, then the same principles apply. It's to do with condition, need, and also can we provide a pool within each of those campuses. And you'll remember last year when we had the fly through in terms of the presentation, we showed that there would be a pool. Our initial aspiration was that we would have a pool in each of the town campuses. Now, I'm not saying we will or we won't, but what I'll say is we may have to revisit our plans in terms of what the world looks like as we come out of COVID, in terms of the facilities that we can provide in each of those localities, in terms of the space that they'll require, in terms of how usable they would be. So we do still have that aspiration, but it has to be based in pragmatic and practical considerations as we go forward. So our ambition has not changed, and it is about making sure that we continue with that local engagement. Thanks, Leader.
Jordan, would you like a supplementary?
No, I'm reassured. Thanks, Leader.
Okay, thanks very much. Next contribution comes from Tom Johnson. Tom, please.
Thanks, Convener. It was just a clarification I'm seeking Under the footer page 12 at 2.1, forecast resources, including government grants. Over the page we have capital grant. Can you tell me what the forecast resources are for Scottish Government grants?
It's probably best if I direct that question to Elaine. Elaine, please.
I've got other questions.
I'll come back to you, Tom, once Elaine answers this question. Elaine?
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, convener. The forecast for government grant is shown on the table just below that. So 23.380 million, and that's based on the allocation we got in 21-22. Scottish Government only gave us a 1-year commitment, and therefore we've used that same figure to project forward. We think that's a reasonable basis at the moment.
Tom, would you like a supplementary on that point?
No, just my second question was at page 13. It's about LED lighting. This spend to save. I can't quite remember the year that LED lighting started being spread around the area. Are we already into spend to save with LED lighting, and how much have we saved so far?
Robert, would you like to respond to those two questions if you can? Robert?
Yes, we're significantly through our programme for replacing lights with LEDs, and this borrowing and a spend to save is really to get us to the end of that programme, Councillor Johnson. In terms of what we've saved, I'm quite happy to go and get those figures, because it's energy savings that have built up over a period of years as we've been delivering this programme since 2017. So I'm happy to get that circulated to members, Leader.
Are you okay with that, Tom?
Yes, yeah, thank you. Yes, if we could get these figures. The final question was at 2.20 on page 16, the Learning Estate Improvement Programme. It says the Council has so far been unsuccessful in bids for phases 1 and 2. I take it this is the controversy over the Wishaw area that we're referring to here.
You're absolutely right, Tom. Robert, do you want to add to it?
Yes, I'll say we've been unsuccessful in phases 1 and 2, but within this programme we have money set aside for future campus, for a town campus and a community campus programme, which gives us the assurance, and one of the issues which was raised by the government was allocation of funds for future projects when we go forward with bids. So if the programme's approved today, we'll be able to go forward with certainty and say that we've got money set aside. Thanks, Leader.
Tom, we just hope that there will be a third phase of the LEAP programme as well. Okay.
Right, thank you. Yeah.
I don't see anybody else in the chat bar. If not, can I direct you then to page 11? And there are 4 recommendations there. Do you agree to the recommendations? Yes. Okay. That then takes us on to item 4 on the agenda, the plan for North Lancashire, and it's pages 23 to 84. And that's Des Murray to highlight the salient points in the report. Des, please.
Thank you, convener. I suppose the first thing to say is, rather than go through the report in detail, I'm sure all members have analysed the contents. In essence, what you've already had today at this committee is 2 examples of how this plan and the programme that sits within it are now starting to pay dividends, we believe, for people across North Lancashire. So the formation of the SIF fund, just approved there, and indeed work streams such as curricular alignment, and indeed the opportunity to create a skilled workforce and to align that workforce to the job opportunities that we ourselves are investing within. The SIF that was mentioned there, the £522 million, combined with the investment in new housing stock for the council, £200 million plus, and indeed over £300 million in terms of housing investment improvement programmes for existing stock. There's £1 billion of council investment in North Lancashire over the next 5 years. And the plan, and that's only one small aspect of the plan, and that's why you have that detailed, comprehensive breakdown that shows that all the component parts of North Lancashire Council and the partnerships within it are acting holistically and in an integrated fashion. I genuinely believe for the first time that we do this as a cohesive whole, that we are better for the sum of our parts in terms of the impact that we have as a whole. If I take members to section 2.12 of the report, and this has been referred to again previously, so I'm not going to go back over it, But that improve economic opportunities and outcomes is inherently linked to supporting all children and young people to realise their full potential. They are not separate ambitions or priorities for the organisation. And the same that our health and well-being, considering the year that we've all just lived through, are not separate to our economic future, not separate to our children's future. That's why I say the detailed report is there. We have also included within it an analysis of our progress and indeed concerns within that progress. One example at the very start of that early appendix relates to future now net migration, depopulation. So for us to sustain inward investment, we need a supply. It's a horrible word, isn't it, labour supply, but that term. But basically we need people coming to North Lanarkshire with the right skills, and we also need to grow our own skills to ensure that that investment is attracted to North Lanarkshire. That will improve the wealth profile, that wealth profile will improve the health profile, etc, etc, etc. So all of that is detailed, that detailed analysis. We also look at the impacts of COVID over the last 12 months, all contained within this comprehensive report. And then there's a summary and a breakdown at the back. We break down each of the individual kind of projects and programmes that are coming through committee over the next 12 months and beyond, so that members have full sight of what is planned and indeed the impact and relationship that exists between all of those elements. Happy to take any questions to the report, convener. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Des. First question, first contribution from Tom Johnson. Tom, please.
Thank you. Right, my first question is what Des referred to there about the population. I mean, that's a real killer blow. It's tucked away on page, it's in the appendix, it's there. It says the NL population increases, I mean, it's totally marginal by 990 people by 2028, compared with 1.8% in Scotland. It's gone up 0.3% in North Lanarkshire. I mean, that really is struggling. And then it's supposed to fall by 3,000 people from 2028 to 43. And of course, the real figures in there, of course, are the ageing population. This is exactly why there are 29 members of the SNP elected to this council, because we're fed up in Scotland with being a peripheral area of the UK, like the Scottish Hebrides, with ageing populations and the young people moving south. That's what it's all about. And the southern countries round about, like the Republic of Ireland, Iceland and Norway, because they're sovereign, they have doubled their population since they got their sovereignty. And this is a huge problem here, that for all their grand plans, we're ending up with a peripheral ageing population with the same old pattern of people moving elsewhere. So this is tucked away here, but that's the real future in North Lanarkshire unless we start to mend our ways. That's my first question. I've got others. Any questions, any comments about this real massive problem of a declining and ageing population?
Tom, I don't think you've asked a question yet. I think you've made comments. And can I say, in a 61-page report, I don't think any author of a report of that size would tuck anything away. It's there for members to read in its entirety. Des, do you want to respond to the point?
Yeah, I'm happy to respond, because I mean, it isn't tucked away. The reason we went, if you recall, members, last year with a 28 indicator matrix that we created using external sources, which was not to shy away from the very real problems facing North Lanarkshire, the area, including depopulation and indeed an ageing workforce. It's why the plan has to be comprehensive and integrated. There's actually good news in that narrative in terms of now bucking net migration in recent years. Actually, the earlier forecast was for North Lanarkshire to become increasingly depopulated. We've actually railed against that and improved our outturns, but there are very real challenges that lie ahead. But this also links to activities, and I don't want to get into detail, but like planning activity and development activity and investment in new housing stock, both public and private across North Lanarkshire. All of that feeds net migration, as do indeed inward investment activity that brings jobs to the area, schools which people want to send their children to, that populate and grow the growth and wealth of the economy. They're all integrated elements. As to the politics of it, the politics will speak for themselves. But our perspective as officers on what can we do to materially impact on those very real risks. So we need to bring more people to the area with the right skills, and we need to grow our own to create an employment and economy that's got the strength to endure for the long term. Thank you, Convener.
Tom, have you a second comment to make?
Yes, it's another question basically on the housing aspect of the whole thing. Now, we know a lot about the 5,000 houses that have to be built over the next few years, but I take it we've got to subtract from that the 1,700 that are being demolished. Okay, things move on, we're looking for better housing, but I think you've still got to minus 1,700 that are coming off. And then there's an awful lot more. How many houses have to come down as a result of the demolition programme long term, including all the high rise plus some low rise? How many houses have to be demolished over that full programme?
Tom, where is all the positivity of this meeting gone? And in two contributions, it seems to have evaporated. Des, you in a position, I'm conscious that Pamela is also on the call. Is Pamela in a better position yourself to respond to the specific point about take the demolitions off the aspiration?
So I'll give an initial response, Leader, and I'll bring Pam in. It's not simply a matter of netting off demolitions over a 20-year programme against a 5,000 new build timeframe, which operates to a different timeline than the demolition for towers. Nor can you ignore the other housing policies underway across North Lanarkshire, whether that's investment in private stock, a partnership with RSLs as part of the SHIP, the Strategic Housing Investment Plan, and indeed, as I mentioned before, the 13,000 plus houses that are coming to North Lanarkshire in the coming years. And then you have other more detailed housing policies, such as incentives for people to move from homes that are too large for them to smaller households, to allow people to move within the existing housing stock, Councillor Johnson. So it will be wholly inaccurate to take, if you go into the towers, the 48 towers, which have in them over a 20-year programme, subject to a whole range of consultations which have yet to be finalised over the next 20 years, the potential for some 4,000 homes, and net that off from what the Council's existing new build programme is. It's not a like-for-like comparison in any way. Could I bring Pam in?
And my final question.
Tom, hold on. We'll bring Pamela in just to amplify the points that Des just made. Pam, are you on the call?
Yeah, thanks, Convener. Now, I just want to say I've obviously trained Des very well. I don't think I can probably add very much more in terms of the comments he's made around the plans for the programme. It's not just in terms of the council's own affordable housing programme. It is also we work closely with the RSLs in terms of their programme, and further to that, the plans are also around how we can facilitate and support more private investment as well, private sector homes, and indeed intermediate tenures as well. So the 5,000 is obviously only part of the overall plan to increase and deliver more homes in the area.
And your third question, Tom?
Thanks, Convener. My final question is about the waiting list that's mentioned on page 45. Could you clarify for me, from memory, I might be wrong here, the waiting list is around about 12,000, I think. I might be wrong, might be more. But can you tell me how many on the waiting list are from that they're actually sitting in NLC houses, and how many are from out with NLC houses out of the total? Can you give me these figures? Maybe not today, but later.
Yeah, I'm happy to.
A simple email to Stephen Llewellyn would have clarified those points. But Des, do you have those figures at hand, or can you arrange for Stephen to make contact with Councillor Johnson and provide those figures?
A bit of both, Convener, because the last figure I had was below 12,000, which was the lowest figure on our waiting list for quite a period in time, certainly over the last decade. But I will get Stephen to give you a full breakdown, Councillor Johnson, in terms of existing waiting list makeup. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Next contribution comes from Councillor Lyndon Jordan, please.
Thanks, Leader. Good to see the detail, frankly. I think that considering the role that we have to play as members, and I do think it's an important role, and my comments really at the beginning are to reflect that. I mean, all of us collectively, of parties and none, as well as officers, have a responsibility to, I guess, do up North Lanarkshire, to promote North Lanarkshire to anybody who's listening. And it's interesting, when I was considering the report, three key pillars came to me. One, we have a thriving life sciences industry in North Lanarkshire that is booming with increased potential. We are well placed in terms of our connections, whether it be, dare I say, a chance to promote Bells Hill again, 4 minutes to Motherwell, 4.5 hours to London, 18 minutes to Glasgow and 58 minutes to Edinburgh. That connectivity, should be a selling point to people who are looking to invest in Lanarkshire. And of course, we have an attractive labour market, with young people able to go and contribute to our world. So there is much to be said in terms of the programme of work around what we do have to offer, not only in our neighbouring authorities, but right across the board from North Lanarkshire. So there is a responsibility, I think, on all of us to continue to promote North Lanarkshire in line with that. My question, turning today, is and just one more comment, I would simply observe that Appendix 3, I think, is one of the best appendix to any reports I've seen to committee. I think it has a clear demonstrated pattern of where we're going, and I think that's really helpful in terms of member scrutiny. So just wanted to recognise that. So my question, obviously members are well versed, but similar to what I said at agenda item 3, members are acutely aware of the plan, we understand the rationale, we understand the programme of work, and we understand the strategic direction. But how do we build agency with the public and local people so that they understand and appreciate the programme of work? Obviously, this is a highly strategic document, but in there is a clear timeline of what we can expect throughout the year in terms of our direction of travel. How can we take our local people with us on that journey so that they know where we're going together in North Lanarkshire?
Thanks very much, Jordan, for your very positive and balanced comments. Des, do you want to respond to them, please?
Yeah, I'm happy to respond, Convener. Thank you. And thank you, Councillor London. Again, members will recall last March when we updated the programme of work and presented it, we also detailed the new plans for the community boards, which are an absolute integral part of that engagement. And indeed, changing the relationship. It's not just about consultation. We talk about co-production these days and a genuine ambition for that for the future. We're not there yet with that. A lot of work is required. And members will recall, again, as part of the programme, as part of the plan, that in December last year, this committee approved the new communities structures within the council and the new role that heads of service will take on during 21-22 to become that direct interface between the corporate management team, the kind of strategic operational part of the delivery of the plan and the programme in terms of the policy set by elected members, and that direct interface with each of those towns and communities across North Lanarkshire through a lead champion. That is actually in motion just now. We had the first session with those heads of service last week, and again, I'm hugely excited in terms of the potential that will bring to this agenda over the coming months. Not to underestimate the challenge there. It's been a difficult year for communities, a difficult year for council as a whole, but there's a huge opportunity here, and indeed people see the demonstration of success within these reports. I mean, I think yesterday, for me, Convener, with a bit of grace, yesterday, or the day before, I think it was, I spoke to CLNL employees who are joining the council as members of the on the 1st of April, so I'll report later in this committee. I was commenting on the fact that it brought some of the figures back to mind. North Lanarkshire, Glasgow and Edinburgh, between the three areas, was responsible for 54% of all business growth in Scotland alone in 2019-20. Our rate of employment gains and youth employment gains were twice the rate of the average across Scotland in 2019-20. So we've got a lot of recovery to do in the back of COVID. This plan, this programme, absolutely puts a robust roadmap to that recovery and that plan ahead. But the communities are a hugely important part of it. It will not succeed without them. That's for sure.
Thanks very much, Des. Jordan, you want a supplementary? No. Okay, thanks. Next contribution comes from Councillor McPay. Michael, please.
Thanks, Convener. Convener, it's just a comment, and it's a comment on the very negative comments that Councillor Johnson made earlier on. And regarding to the population decrease, he stated, now, there's an old Scottish saying that you can't teach your granny to suck eggs. Former history teachers stated that the Republic of Ireland, or the Irish population, has grown. In the mid-1800s, with the Great Famine, population in Ireland at that point in time was 8 million. It's nowhere near that now. It's under 5 million still. So just point out to Councillor Johnson. Thank you.
Under British rule.
Okay, can we try and keep it on the positive notes that we've articulated so far? Can we ask a contribution from Councillor Beveridge? Alan, please.
Thanks, Convener. Councillor London has actually answered. I was just worried about the he answered the question. He answered the question I was going to ask her about delivery of the plan. But can I just also, I'm not here to defend the SNP by no manner of means, but I'm very encouraged when I hear the leader of the SNP being positive and saying the right words about promoting North Lanarkshire. I think North Lanarkshire is booming, and forget the politics of this. I welcome what Councillor Linden has just said there. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I think we would all reiterate that comment. Can we now move on to Councillor Bob? Bob, please.
Leader, I just wanted to say, it's not a question, it's just a comment, that we were very excited about a previous paper about college, about the partnership and pathways, which was really encouraging. I need to say this report is equally encouraging. It's remarkable. It's exciting. I'm really looking forward to the forward with it. And you know, Des made a comment there that actually makes you think about it. £1 billion investment over the next 5 years. With all the work and the joint work and the very progressive work that will move forward with that, I'm really looking forward to the next 5 years in this plan, Leader. And really, that's all I wanted to say and finish on a positive note. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bob. I don't see any other names on the chat bar. Can I direct you to the recommendations on pages 23 and then on to 24? There are 4 recommendations. Do you agree with the recommendations? Thank you very much. That then, with the variations which are highlighted at the beginning, that now takes us to item 8 on the agenda. And item 8 on the agenda is a positional statement on prostitution. It's in pages 121 to 134. Can I ask Lisanne to highlight salient points in the report? Lisanne, please.
Thank you, Convener. This report seeks endorsement through the Policy and Strategy Committee of a position statement on prostitution, which is set out in Appendix 1, pages 126 to 128 of your papers refer. In summary, Equally Safe, the national strategy for preventing and eradicating all forms of violence against women and girls, defines prostitution as a form of commercial sexual exploitation and part, therefore, of the continuum of violence against women. This is supported by North Lanarkshire Violence Against Women strategic group and is also reflected at present in the Council's own gender-based violence policy, a copy of which, for reference, is included in Appendix 2. A challenging demand approach is advocated within the position statement. Section 1.4 of the report outlines success of this approach in Sweden. Challenging demand seeks a change in the legal framework in Scotland to decriminalise those selling sex and criminalise the buyers of sex in all settings. The position statement also importantly supports the implementation of measures to provide support for those exploited through prostitution, areas of work that we are progressing as a council in line with tackling poverty, for example, a key route into prostitution for those affected by poverty. Financial inclusion provides support to those exiting prostitution. Housing provides support and employability. It's about communicating effectively about the supports that the Council already provide. The position statement has been endorsed by the Strategic Leadership Board of North Lanarkshire Partnership. Committee is asked to endorse the position statement. Thank you, Convener.
Thank you very much, Lisanne. The contribution from Councillor Linden. Jordan, please.
Thanks, Leader. Just briefly, keen to make progress. Let's add 2 things to say. One, on page 128, I think that the section 17 is incredibly powerful, particularly in the context of the events that we've seen in recent weeks. And I think that, in particular, the recognition that total control over one's body in a patriarchal system where men still hold the balance of power is still not a total reality, I think is incredibly powerful. And I think it's worth mentioning on the record. Lisanne, in terms of my question, the gender-based violence policy on Appendix 2, I know it's due for review in September this year, and I wondered what early work was underway to begin that process with a range of partners.
Lisanne, please. Lisanne, you're on mute.
Apologies, Convener, I was struggling to get off mute. The Review of the strategy will be taken forward primarily by the Council's Equality Network. At the moment, the network are focusing their activities on the development of the Council's equality outcomes. The review of the strategy will follow shortly after that outcome review is completed, and will involve all partners in terms of the North Lanarkshire Partnership.
Jordan, you want supplementary? No, you okay? I don't see any other names on the chat bar. Can I direct you to the recommendations on page 121? There are 4 recommendations there. Do you all agree? Thank you very much. It then takes us on to item 9 on the agenda, and it's the new complaints handling procedure on pages 135 to 142. And I ask Katrina Hassel to highlight salient points. Katrina, please.
Yeah, thank you, Convener. So very briefly, the model complaints handling process looks to ensure that all Scottish authorities define and treat complaints in the same way, and the paper seeking approval to implement revisions to the process by the required implementation date of April 2021. The new procedures should make it easier for customers to complain and get resolution, and you'll see from the paper that we're taking forward elements of our approved digital and IT strategy and trying to make our complaints handling more modernised using our new Dynamics platform, and that should enable customers to receive more automatic notifications of progress. And other than that, just refer to the recommendations.
Okay, one name on the chat bar so far. Jordan, you want to make a contribution or question?
Apologies, Leader. A couple of questions on this. Thanks, Katrina. I'm wondering, in terms of section 2.17 of the report on the individual management by own staff of their workload in terms of complaint handling, what processes will be put in place in terms of quality assurance around timescales for response to ensure that people are replied to within the appropriate timescales and that that's not missed? Secondly, in terms of complaints themselves, is it the intention that the website will be used as a complaints portal, or you know, a forum will be available on the website to make a complaint? And if that is indeed the case, has that been put through a test of change in terms of user testing? You know, that we did that with the website generally in terms of the Digital NL programme, but obviously, you know, to be assured that people have confidence in what we're doing, is there any testing being done? And then finally, whilst I obviously support the digital first initiative and the broad thrust, there are those in North Lanarkshire who are you know, not digitally enabled, and therefore what support will they be given in terms of traditional methods of complaint? For example, if they phone Northline, will a call handler talk them through that and log that complaint on their behalf, things like that, to provide some reassurance? Thanks, Katrina.
Jordan, you don't have to apologise for asking questions. That's the main reason why we're all on this call. Katrina.
Yeah, thank you. I'll start in reverse order. So yes, it obviously has the intention to use online, and answering your second question, then that link is available online just now, and we have tested all the way through and did do an element of that testing as part of the Web Redesign Council of London, which has been up and running since Christmas. But yeah, absolutely, there is still going to be that telephone number for people to come through, and people can still write into us as part of the process, and working largely because we're trying to make a more refined and automatic process with the services. Then we've had a number of walkthroughs of the process and tested them, and we're still in that testing just now, and elements of that as well will be to be able to handle any that come in on non-digital means.
Jordan,
sorry, Leader, if you don't mind, just a clarification. I think Katrina may have missed the point on quality assurance around timescales.
I thought there were other points to be answered there as well, Katrina. Okay.
Sorry about that. I missed it. I was talking about the quality assurance, but I missed the timelines. Absolutely. And looking back at the stats over the last couple of years, then there have been a few occasions where we have missed, particularly the response in 5 days. Some years very low, other years sort of a quarter. But yeah, having walked through the process, then there's new queues and things, and the dashboards that are available should enable people to be able to monitor the complaints that they've got coming in more frequently. But internally, Council of London, then we do have a complaints handling network, and because we're moving to a new process and a new system, then we will look to keep an eye on that in the first few months, just to be certain.
Thanks very much, Katrina. I don't see any other names on the chat bar. Can I direct you to page 135? There are 2 recommendations there. Do we agree with the recommendations? Thank you very much. It now takes us on to item 10 on the agenda. And item 10 is in relation to the national contract for postal services. I'd ask Stephen Penman to highlight salient points. Stephen, please.
Thank you, Convener. What I think is a relatively straightforward report. There's been a national procurement framework in place for postal services for public services in Scotland for nearly a decade now, and the Council has participated in that since its inception. Scottish Procurement had intended to design a new framework last year, but due to difficulties caused by COVID in terms of their ability to do that, they've extended via a modification the current arrangements. It required for us to participate that, and members will understand that we couldn't suddenly have a day where we weren't able to have any mail services. The Chief Executive used his delegated authority under contract standing orders to apply that modification to North Lanarkshire's participation in that framework. There is a new framework being developed now, and that's expected to be tendered in the summer of this year, with the contract start in January 2022. So from the members' point of view, asking you to note that the Chief Executive used his delegated authority to extend the modification to the current contract, and also approve the Council's own framework is put in place.
Okay, we lost you slightly at the end there, Stephen. I don't see any contributions or any comments in the chat bar. Can I direct you then to page 143? There are 2 recommendations there. Do you agree to the recommendations? Thank you very much. It takes us to item 11A, and 11A is the annual review of the Economic Regeneration Development Plan. I'd ask Pamela Humphreys to highlight salient points. Pamela, please.
Yeah, thanks, Convener. Yeah, the members will be aware that the Economic Regeneration Delivery Plan was approved back in August 2019. And obviously the main focus or the main point of the delivery plan is to coordinate the physical regeneration and related activity to maximise economic benefits for the area and help reduce inequality. And the 4 main themes related to that, obviously, are increasing housing supply, which we've already touched on today, regenerating our town centres, developing our strategic infrastructure, and that obviously includes the City Deal programme, and developing and improving our business infrastructure to attract new investment and employment to the area. Obviously, the RDP is a long-term strategy, and in particular related to the town centre regeneration, which is a long-term programme. But we agreed that we would develop a kind of rolling annual plan to monitor and to track progress with the delivery. So the purpose of this report was to highlight progress against the first annual plan for 2020, and also to identify new targets and priorities for the coming year, which obviously we will continue to track and report on through the Enterprise and Growth Committee. So overall, hopefully members can see within the appendices and Appendix 1 in terms of progress to date that there's been good progress across all of these priority themes, despite obviously a number of the challenges in the previous year. And also hopefully members will also note in Appendix 2 in terms of the future priorities, they'll start to see some real progress in terms of delivery on the ground, which I know is what we all want to see, even though a lot of these programmes do have quite a long lead-in time, but hopefully we're starting to see some progress in activity or on the ground as well. So happy to take any questions on the report.
Thank you very much. Councillor Barclay. Claire, please.
Thanks, Leader. It's just more of a comment and a thank you. I know that with a lot of the decisions that are being made now where housing is going to be built, it's all of the approaches about discussions and connecting with the community before we get to the stage of it going to planning, so that any wrinkles, if we want to put it that way, can be ironed out. So it's just to thank Pamela and the team for the work that is being done, especially in my ward, and engaging with the community to look at that. I think really that is the way forward, because it can be simple things that can be ironed out, and it means that it gets the confidence of the people in the community about going forward. It means that that different things are not imposed on them. It's a partnership, and I like to see that is the way of going forward, and thanks for that.
Pamela, you want to respond to the points made by Councillor Barclay, please?
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Barclay. I appreciate that. And as you say, certainly in terms of the council's own programme, and indeed we would encourage the RSLs as well. We do try and do everything that we can, I think, to engage with local members and the wider community prior to progressing with the planning applications, particularly because we are conscious that a lot of our sites, or in fact probably all of our sites, are within existing communities, and sometimes on sites that have been previous schools or open space or brownfield sites, and bring with them a number of particular challenges. So yeah, we're obviously always keen to do as much pre-engagement as we can, and indeed during the construction phase and after that, we're obviously always happy to try and respond to any requests for information or to attend meetings. So happy to continue with that progress.
Thanks very much, Pamela. I don't see any other comments on the chat bar. If that's the case, could I direct you to page 147? And you'll see in page 147, there are 3 recommendations. Do you agree to the 3 recommendations? Thank you very much. It takes us to item 11B, and this is the Economic Recovery Plan. And once again, I'd ask Pamela to highlight salient points. Pamela.
Thanks, Convener. And again, this very much sort of follows on in terms of a number of other reports that have already been considered at this committee. So it's very much about focusing on our what we can do to support recovery and mitigate the impact, the economic impact that the pandemic has had in terms of our local economy. But I think we'd hopefully all recognise that we are coming from a position of strength, and we've got many opportunities that we can build upon. So this economic recovery plan, obviously, when we initially went to committee, I think back in August, to outline what the priorities were and what we were planning to do with around economic recovery, we had assumed that by this point, when we were reporting, we would be very much in the recovery phase, and clearly that's not quite the case yet. We are still very much in our response phase, and a lot of activity and a lot of the services are still engaged in delivering business support grants to businesses to help them hopefully sustain them through this difficult period. And I think I was just doing a quick tally before we came in the call that I think the council has dispersed £66 million of business grants to date, and still counting. So that there's a lot of focus currently is going on that area of activity. However, it's obviously important that we are planning for how can we help the economy to recover as we go forward, and that's focusing on 2 particular areas. One is in relation to how do we support people into employment, and that obviously also links to developing, helping people to adapt and develop their skills and training. So that's a key focus, and again, that's been touched on today. And the second main priority area is how do we support businesses to obviously survive. That's our current focus, but also then to develop and grow and adapt, and to attract new investment and employment into North Lanarkshire to hopefully create a more sort of sustainable and viable economy going forward. So the activity is obviously clearly linked to our own investment programme and our own economic regeneration delivery plan that we've just referred to, and we want to make sure that we're maximising all the opportunities that our own increased investment programme brings to the area in terms of opportunities for both our local people and our businesses. So that's also a key focus of the plan. So there's an action plan attached, and that will continue to be developed, reviewed as we go forward, and also to make sure that we're taking advantage of any opportunities and responding to any other challenges that come our way. So again, happy to answer any questions on the report, which is for noting.
Thanks very much, Pamela, for the report and also highlighting the up-to-date position. As members are aware, this report was passed at the Enterprise and Growth Committee and was remitted to the P&S Committee, and the recommendations are on page 181. Do you agree to the 3 recommendations there? Okay, thank you very much. At this stage, Archie and Stephen should leave the call now, and we then go to item 6 on the agenda, and that's the final update on sourcing. I'd ask Heather Liddle to highlight salient points. Heather, please.
Okay, thank you, Leader. So the transfer of culture and leisure services takes place 2 weeks today, and this report is indeed that, a final update. I'm going to just pick up on a few points in the report for your consideration. If I can take you first of all to paragraph 2.2 and the workforce transfer strategy. So as we've previously advised, the decision to transfer services back to the Council was considered to be a relevant transfer under 2P, and we've worked to ensure that we make sure that we fulfil our obligations in this regard. Both CLNL and NLC have worked with our trade union colleagues throughout the process. In paragraph 2.23, you will see that there's a total of 661.26 FTE transferring in a couple of weeks' time, and the table will give you a breakdown of where they are all going. In relation to the paragraph 2.24, you will see that all transferring employees are in the process of being issued with a statement of change. So this confirms that their employment will change to North Lanarkshire Council from the 1st of April 2021. And it also confirms that no other terms and conditions will change at present. Work towards harmonisation will continue from the point of transfer. Moving on to the transfer agreement in paragraph 2.3, so excellent progress has been made by legal colleagues in finalising details of the transfer, and the bullet points will give you an idea of the types of things that will be covered in the agreement. The next report will give you the detail of recovery, but obviously you'll appreciate that recovery of services will be a key factor in the new service. We do recognise that service delivery will change, and it's likely that there is a potential for a negative impact on income, but that's something that we'll keep you up to date with, and we'll go over more detail in the next report. So I'm happy to take any questions.
Any comments, questions? I don't see any intimated on the chat bar. We saw one's just come in. Jordan, please. Jordan.
Thanks, Leader. Sorry, I couldn't find the mouse there. 2 questions, Heather, please. One relates to the points raised at section 2.2.4 on the harmonisation of terms and conditions. I'd understood that in terms of members' desire, that was something that we were keen to ensure happened as quickly as possible. And I was therefore wondering, it states in the report, I believe, that trade unions have been informed, I think is the wording that was used. What discussions taking place with the trade unions on that point rather than informing them? Has there been active dialogue, engagement and discussion on those conditions? And realistically, I guess, why has that not happened to date? What's the explanation for that not happening? And then, if you don't mind, Heather, just briefly a comment, Leader, before I conclude. I think that section 2.2.5 of the report is really quite welcome in terms of the casual workforce. I think that in the difficult times that we're in the pandemic, I think that any support we can give to those workers to continue in employment is absolutely crucial. And having known that they've made a significant contribution to culture and leisure North Lanarkshire on an ongoing basis, the fact that we can continue to support them in any way is really welcome.
Thanks very much, Sean, for your positive comment there. Heather, you want to respond to the specific question, please?
Yeah, sure. I mean, in relation to harmonisation, yes, the trade unions have been fully involved and engaged with. They've had lots of opportunities to put forward their views, and you'll appreciate that they have done so. In terms of why harmonisation hasn't taken place, we gave a commitment at the very beginning of this programme, which was absolutely correct, that no one would be put into a position of detriment. And it was really just down to complexity, Councillor Linden. I think at a point in time, we felt it was more appropriate that we delayed that process. We allowed everyone to transfer over, and then we will go through that process. The trade unions will continue to be fully engaged in that throughout, as you would expect. In terms of the position with casuals, and I'm thankful for your comment on that. Right now, casuals are in the process of receiving a letter which is basically asking them, are you quite happy that you will continue to work for North Lanarkshire Council? Where would you like to work? And that letter will give them a number of different options. Certainly not a commitment to work, as we're not able to do that, but I would say that overall we are relatively comfortable that we'll be in a good position to offer casuals work, particularly when we get to the next report, and assuming that that's agreed and we are in a position of recovery.
Any further comments, questions to Heather, please? Can I direct you to page 95? There's one recommendation there. You agree to the recommendation. Thank you very much. Can I now move on to item 7 on the agenda? As members should be aware, an amended report was circulated last night by Leslie in light of the First Minister's comments on Tuesday in relation to the restrictions. So we're working to the amended report. I'd ask Lisanne to highlight salient points and also highlight the changes in the amended report, please, Lisanne. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Convener. I acknowledge it's not usual for members to be presented with a report which covers a level of operational context as can be found in Appendix 1 of this report, which sets out in detail the planned recovery of culture and leisure services in line, as the leader has mentioned, with the First Minister's announcement, together with sector-specific and COVID-safe guidance. The importance of recovering these services and addressing the negative impact of the pandemic on the well-being of communities is clearly recognised in terms of the recovery roadmap presented today. We will recover services as quickly and safely as we are in a position to do, and we'll communicate this effectively. Stephen Penman's team will lead on the communications, planning and delivery. Community boards will also be part of this process. As the leader has mentioned, members have been presented with an updated report. The key changes relate to the inclusion of a timeline of provisional dates for recovery, and this is set out hopefully clearly for you in section 2.1.1 of the report. We have also reviewed the report to ensure the inclusion of community facilities referenced in the previous report, as some of the centres had been considered at an earlier stage as potential vaccination centres, so the report should be complete. This point illustrates the flexibility that has to be built into an effective recovery plan. It will be shaped and changed by circumstance, and above all, safety of our communities is at the forefront of the planning. In summary, the report covers all aspects of the requirements stemming from the Council decision for the Chief Executive of CLNL to provide the following, and that this be reported through the appropriate Council committee. A clear route map which details when certain facilities can reopen, which coincides with the Scottish Government's tier system. A report to give a full update on the current challenges Culture and Leisure North Lanarkshire faced in relation to the reopening of facilities during the coronavirus pandemic. What measures that the ALIO is considering to safely reopen facilities across the local authority area. Happy to take any questions, Convener.
First member on the chat bar, Jordan, please.
Hey, thanks again, Leader. Lisanne, welcome the publication of this agenda item and indeed the associated report. For many members right across the board and all parties and none, it has been quite a long time coming, and I recognise that is no criticism of officers of the council, absolutely is a matter for culture and leisure, but difficult against the backdrop of COVID and the pandemic. I think we need to recognise that, but nonetheless, it is welcome that it's here, and I think also it's welcome it's here in terms of that transparency and engaging with the public to be able to direct them to the contents of the report and managing expectations. My question, Lisanne, related to section 2.1.1 of the report on the recovery plan overview, particularly around phase 1 with all sports and leisure centres open with restrictions in place in line with Scottish Government guidance excluding Coatbridge Outdoor Sports Centre. The obvious question here, and forgive me if in the absence of the changed report overnight, I've negated to notice this. But obviously we have the clinical satellite hubs for vaccination much more closer to communities. The obvious question to ask is, for example, Sir Matt Busby will be one of those in Bells Hill. I don't see that excluded from this. Is there information to be shared in terms of how we can restore all sports-led and leisure facilities, even those that are currently being used for clinical satellite hubs beginning in April? Thanks, Leader.
Lizanne, you want to respond to the question? And if Heather, you want to make a contribution as well. Lizanne, please.
Thank you. In terms of that specific facility, we will be looking at the planning around whether we can use the facility for its purpose, as well as the vaccination programme, and that it maybe there are certain days that the facility is not able to be used for anything other than the vaccination programme, because as you'll be aware, Council London, there are constraints within the physical makeup of that particular building to be able to use it for a dual purpose. But we will work that through depending on the requirement for the vaccination programme, if that answers your question.
Heather, do you want to make any comment? Heather, please.
I think the only thing that I would add in relation to centres like that is that we will be working with facility support services just to make sure that we're putting in place a quick turnaround in terms of deep cleans, etc.
Robert, have you got an overview of this that you would like to share with members? Robert?
Yes, certainly, Leader. Our plan is to reopen all facilities, other than those which are full-time for vaccination centres and those which will be utilised for testing. But I think what Lizanne and Heather are saying is it may be that some facilities may be unavailable for use by the community for certain periods when those satellite facilities are set up. But as Heather says, we'll be looking to turn them around as quickly and safely as possible so that we maximise the effect of that dual use. But we are intending to reopen every facility as phased, and the phasing is really just to give us that practical and pragmatic approach to training staff, getting facilities ready, and making sure that we open it safely. Thanks, Leader.
You want supplementary to any of the three responses, Jordan?
No, thanks, Leader. Reassured.
Right, thank you very much. Next contribution from Megan Gallagher. Megan, please.
Thanks, Convener. This report really welcomed, and I'm delighted to actually see a route map of some sort actually being provided, because I think that was a big concern for clubs across North Lanarkshire. I know my inbox was filled, and I'm sure other members were as well last time round, and it's good to see that now being communicated, and it's great to see that Stephen Penman's team will also be taking that on to make sure it's circulated through social media. But it's just on the context of clubs. Will council officers be looking to engage directly with them? Because I'm pretty certain that some clubs will have concerns, particularly maybe perhaps swimming clubs, in terms of how to socially distance, in terms of making sure that they are adapting to the new normal. So it's to see what dialogue the council will have with clubs in relation to the reopening of sports facilities and leisure facilities. Thank you.
Robert, can I ask you to pick that up initially, please? Robert.
Certainly, yeah, that is part of our reopening plan, will be to make sure that those users who use our facilities, whether they be gyms, whether they be the court facilities, the indoor facilities, or the pools, that they do so in relation to the measures that we've put in place and the controls that we've put in place. So that's a critical part of it, Councillor Gallagher, is to make sure that they understand and that we support them in their level of compliance. It may mean that there's limitations on use, it may mean that there's limitations in numbers, but it will be for good reason, and we'll work that through with the clubs. Thanks.
Heather, do you want to make any comment, or Lizanne? Heather, Lizanne? No? Okay. Megan, you want a supplementary, please?
No, Chair, that's really reassuring. Thank you very much.
Okay. Can I direct you? I'm conscious that the pages on the amended report have not been numbered, so there's not a number on it. So it's the front page of it, and you can see there is one recommendation. Do you agree to the recommendation? Okay, that concludes the business for today. Thank you very much, colleagues, for your cooperation during the meeting, and thank you to the staff and the authors of the reports. Some excellent reports have been tabled, so thank you very much indeed, and thank you for being on the call. Thank you.
Well, thanks,